They shot him in the heart. The crowd screamed. The world froze. The man in white fell to the ground, his body shaking, his robe stained with blood. People shouted, cried, prayed his name. And when doctors opened his body, they couldn't understand how he was still alive. The bullet had missed every vital organ by millimeters. Too perfect to be chance. He should have died that day. But heaven wasn't finished with him yet. Before he was St. John Paul II, he was just a quiet boy named Karol Józef Wojtyła, born in 1920 in a small Polish town called Wadowice. His childhood was bright, full of laughter and love. But one by one, everyone he loved was taken. His mother died when he was only 8. His brother, Edmund, a doctor, died caring for the sick. And his father, his last family, died when Karol was just 21. He buried them all, alone. And in that silence, surrounded by loss, something inside him broke. But something far greater was born. He didn't turn bitter. He turned holy. Then came the war. The Nazis invaded Poland, closing churches, arresting priests, burning seminaries to the ground. Karol was just a young man, but his faith burned brighter than fear. He worked in a quarry by day, his hands cracked and bleeding, and by night he studied secretly to become a priest, knowing that if he was caught, he'd be killed. He risked everything, his youth, his life, his future, for a faith the world was trying to erase. After the war, the impossible happened. He became a priest. The same young man who had lost his entire family now stood before the altar, holding the body of Christ with trembling hands. But he wasn't an ordinary priest. He hiked with young people, played soccer, laughed, sang, and somehow made holiness feel real again. Years passed. The church called him to Rome. He became a bishop, then a cardinal. But no one expected what came next. On October 16, 1978, the world heard the words, "Habemus Papam," we have a pope. A son of Poland, a survivor of war and tyranny, was now Pope John Paul II, the first non-Italian pope in 455 years. He stepped out onto the Vatican balcony, looked over the sea of people, and said words that shook the world. Do not be afraid. For the next 26 years, he became the voice of courage for a world drowning in fear. He traveled more than any pope before him, preaching to millions, defending the poor, and standing against communism and hatred. But evil wasn't done with him yet. On May 13, 1981, while greeting thousands in St. Peter's Square, a gunman raised his weapon and fired 2 shots. The Pope collapsed into the arms of his aides, whispering one word, Mary. He was rushed to surgery, and for hours the world waited. When doctors examined him, they said it was a miracle. The bullet's path was strange, curved, missing every vital organ. John Paul later said, one hand fired the bullet, another guided it. He believed the Virgin Mary had saved him, and he later placed the bullet that struck him inside her crown as a sign of gratitude. But what happened next shocked the world even more. He visited the man who shot him, his assassin, in prison. He sat across from him, took his hand, and said softly, I forgive you. The 2 men spoke privately for 20 minutes. When John Paul left, the gunman was in tears. That moment, forgiveness in the face of hatred, became one of the most powerful images of mercy the modern world had ever seen. Years passed. The Pope grew older, weaker. Parkinson's disease took hold of his body, but not his spirit. His voice trembled, his hands shook, but he refused to hide. He continued to appear before millions, broken, shaking, but still blessing the world. He showed that holiness is not about strength, but about surrender, that even suffering can be sacred. On April 2nd, 2005, the world held its breath. Crowds filled St. Peter's Square, singing, praying, crying. And as the sun set, John Paul II whispered his final words, Let me go to the house of the Father. He died peacefully at 84, but even in death, he wasn't done. Soon after, miracles began to spread. A French nun, Sister Marie Simon-Pierre, who had Parkinson's disease, prayed through his intercession and was instantly healed. Doctors couldn't explain it. Science couldn't deny it. That miracle, and many more that followed, proved what the world already knew. He was a saint. In 2014, Pope Francis canonized him as Saint John Paul II, the Pope who should have died, but didn't. The Pope who forgave his assassin, who turned pain into power, and who taught the world to love even when it hurts. He is the patron saint of youth and families, of World Youth Day, and of those who seek courage in faith. He wasn't just a pope. He was a living miracle, a man who carried the weight of the world and whispered to all of us, "Do not be afraid." Open wide the doors to Christ. If this story moved your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.